What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode. Got all kinds of stuff going on in the shop here today. You see we got a reamer here. There's a piece of pipe, another one of these cooling tower loops that we are fixing the welds on. And we're doing a pressure test right now. And then I've also got a canopy I have to build for a home builder here locally. So we'll go ahead and dive into this and see what we can get done. All right, so we've got our material sitting here, some 20-foot lengths. We've got some 2x6 rec tubes, some 1-inch rod, and some 6-inch channel. We got a canopy we got to build. This is for a higher end home. This is going to mount over the top of the third car garage. It shouldn't be too tough, or at least that's what I'm hoping. As always, the drawings aren't really what you hope for, so I've had to communicate back and forth with the architect and engineer. It's just kind of how it goes. So we're gonna go ahead and get this cut open. We'll get it on the saw and we'll start cutting our parts, and I'll show you guys the drawing. All right, so it's very small, but this is the frame. That's a side view. So there's some 1-inch rod here, and then I'm gonna have some brackets here and here. I'm actually going to change the design. This actually shows it welded right to the structure. That will be an absolute nightmare for the powder coat guy to powder coat and to transport from A to B without it getting bent. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this design with the home builder's permission. Alright, so I'll get the material on the saw and we'll start cutting this. Alright guys, so we've pretty much got all of our parts cut here. I am going to have to go do some leg work for this. I've got to go to the house and measure, hopefully use my stud finder and be able to locate where the studs are in relation to the door. The drawing calls for holes to be drilled through this back piece of rec tube, which is what's going to mount to the house. But if I just work off center and I put them in there like the studs are perfectly centered to where this is going to go, and then I get there and I go to install it and the studs are offset, I'd have to start over basically because I've got all these holes that are in the wrong spot. Homeowner's not going to want that. So I need to go check this, measure, and then I need to check to see if they're centered in relation to the door. So I'm going to go do that. When I get that done and I come back and I'm able to keep going on this, we'll come back and give you an update. Alright guys, so I was able to go check out the job site last night and make sure that everything was going to line up the way I wanted it to. The good news is this piece that's going to mount with our anchors above the garage door should hit the header. And then there's some anchors, some rod anchors, some rod ties that will anchor up above on either end of this frame. So now I want to go through and I need to lay out my hole pattern, and we got to get this drilled. So I'm going to start laying these holes out. The drawing calls for 2 anchors every 16 inches on center. And so I'm going to go ahead and lay this out, and then we'll get to where we're drilling these, and then we can start fitting the frame up. So let's go ahead and do that now. All right, so with stuff like this, I like to work off center. Okay, so we're 128, so 64 inches to center. So I'll go ahead and mark center. Always double check. Okay. On something like this where I've got to lay out a hole pattern, I like to work off center. And so I know I'm 16 inches on center for my anchors. I'm going to go ahead and find 8 inches either side of my center line mark. That'll give me my first 4 anchors, and then I can just work off of that to the outside as far as I need to go. Okay, now I can pull off of this one and just work my way out as far as I need to go. I'm going to bust a little piece off. Okay, so now all that's left to do is mark where the anchors are going to go. 1.5 inches in. The drawings don't really call for this, so we're just going to do what we think we should do. Okay. Now we'll go ahead and hit these with a center punch. Alright, we're ready to drill. Fire in the hole. Little tip. Sometimes, if the material's not thick enough, which apparently this isn't, the sucker will walk on you. So if you put a clamp on this, that resolves the issue. Love it. All right guys, so we got the holes drilled in this piece, and then I went ahead and laid out where the cross braces are going to go. All 4 sections are evenly spaced. So I've got those marked. I need to lay out my marks on this side and do the same thing. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now, and then we'll be ready to start fitting our cross members. So we'll have channel on the ends and rec tube in the middle. So let me get that laid out, and then we'll go ahead and start fitting this. All right, we got that laid out. Now we're able to start fitting. So I'm going to grab a couple fireball squares and we'll go ahead and start fitting this. All right, so you can see I got a couple fireball squares clamped to the end of my material here. So there's going to be wood cladding that gets inserted in this just for looks. I am not doing that. They'll have a wood guy do that. So it's really nice using these fireball squares this way. I used to use a piece of plate, and you can do that to get by, but it's really nice that these squares have a machined surface, so you're able to get everything nice and flat. And then I can put another square here, clamp this together to get it square that way, which is what we're planning on doing. So, okay, so all these joints, I've got some joints here that all need to be welded out. Everything that's a butt weld, I always like to gouge out. So what I'm gonna do is I'll get tacks on this, I'll get everything all tacked up, and then I'll gouge those out with a grinder after. You can do it before, but it's probably just as easy to just gouge it out after you have it tacked up. So that's what I'm gonna do. And it will only be these top and bottom ones. And then the inside I'll just run, you know, a T-joint weld on the inside of this channel, same thing. There is one on the back side here where it's flush. I'm gonna gouge that out and weld that up. So I'm going to get the XMT out. We're welding this out with dual shield MIG today, 045 wire, CO2 for the cover gas. I always like to weld structural stuff with dual shield. So we'll go ahead and get the XMT out, get it all set up, and start tacking this. My goodness. Look at who's in the shop today. Who's this stranger?
I don't know.
It's been a while. All right, Bridger's gonna be helping us fit this up today. So we're just gonna go around here. We're gonna get this tacked up. I'm gonna start in one corner, and then I'm gonna work my way around, and then I'm gonna pull my diagonals and see if we're square across. Okay, get a tack on both top and bottom on the inside. So I'm just trying to get this joint flush on the back. And then my fireball square here fits in a lot tighter places, such as this. Okay, so I want to mention one other thing, one other reason why the fireball squares are so nice to use for this type of stuff. So the fact that they have these little openings, these little slots, so that you can get a clamp through on either side of the material like this is a game changer. So because of these slots. It's just much more convenient. The reason I say that is now I'm able to get my clamp on the outside and still use a square on the inside, and the clamp won't be in the way. So it's just one more thing I love about the Fireball squares. Okay, I'll put it on there. Okay, now this is usually when you start seeing issues if things aren't square. Ready? Give me one on the inside. Right now. Okay. So now we're going to go through and we're going to check diagonal 135 and an eighth, 135 and a quarter, and then we'll just tap this. See if that moved. What we're trying to do is pull the two corners together. Okay, so that moved a 1/16. Just a titch. $135, 3/16. Now check the other way. Okay, so now we're right on. So now I'm going to go back through, tack all through this to try to keep it square. So I'm going to put multiple tacks, top and bottom, inside, outside. So now we can start tacking our cross bracing in. One other thing I wanted to mention to you guys, just because this is something that you deal with a lot in fabrication, finding good gloves. I'm trying a new glove right now. I was using Tillman, and I really like them. They were the Tillman deerskin gloves. They're a little more expensive. They're pretty soft, and I know a lot of people don't like the soft. Some do, some don't. I do, but they got so freaking expensive. I mean, they were close to 30 bucks a pair, and that's hard to spend when you're just gonna burn through a pair in a week or something. So I'm trying these. They are cow skin. You can see they're kind of rough out on the outside, on the top, and then on the palm, they're smooth. One of the things I really like is this finger right here, and here's why. So this piece of hide wraps all the way around. There's no stitch on the inside. That's usually where the gloves blow out, is right here. And for me, when I'm welding MIG a lot, you'll notice I'll snap the end of the wire off. A lot of times when you do that, when you snap that wire off, sometimes it's still hot and it'll burn the thread right there. And when it melts that thread, it blows out there. So I really like that. One of the things I don't like is I have had two pairs where the fingers on them are like 8 miles long, and I don't know who the crap has fingers that are this long on one finger. But this pair's been pretty good. They fit good, they're holding up good. I've been using these for about 2 weeks now, and they're holding up pretty well. So these are ironclad gloves. I think you can get them on Amazon. I'll leave a link in the description, and we'll see how they hold up. I just wanted to mention that. All right, guys, so I'm just trying to show a few different ways on how you can use these Fireball squares. I think one of the hard parts about these squares is there are so many ways to use them that it takes some time to learn how to use them efficiently, the best way possible. And the only way you're going to figure that out is just to use them and figure it out. So let's get this first one in here. Okay, so you can see I've also put a square on the bottom so that I can get these flush. Okay, so I'm able to get this in place. We're going to use the furniture clamp to pull it together because we're a little bit bowed in the middle. Let's just put it on this side. And then I just want to check square this way, which it's not. I'm able to just tap that over. I like to check up and down too. There's actually a little bit of bow in this because you got the seam here on this rec tube, but it is level. So now we're gonna go ahead, Bridger's gonna tack this. Throw a tack there in that corner. Okay, now I'll get some over here. Okay, so now we can take and move this stuff and get the next one in place. Okay. Goes a lot faster when you have two people and you can just hurry and swap all your stuff over. Throw your tacks on it. Okay, so this one, we're going to use these a little different. I'm just trying to show different ways to do this. So we've got saws underneath. We can just set our support around saws, and that should get flush where it needs to be. Ow. Okay, let me take our fixtures off. Okay, so now I'm going to add some tacks to this, just like everywhere else. We'll get tacks on 100% everything. All right, so we got tacks on everything. Bridger's grabbing a grinder. He's getting a hard disc on and he's gonna start gouging these out. And then I'll just go behind him and start welding them out. We'll just rotate it, position it, flip it, and get it welded out. I am gonna weld all of these flat ones first, roll it, weld the other flat ones, and then I'll stand it up on end and do these ones. But it's more likely that it will warp and twist this way than it is this way because of the rigidity of the rec tube and the channel. You need to think about things like that when you're fitting up fixtures like this or frames. If you were to just go to welding and start welding all of these ones on the inside, it would probably pull and end up changing how square it is. So I always like to do these flat ones first. That'll hold everything together. That way when you stand it up, if it does try to pull, it's reinforced by these already. Bridger's gonna gouge, I'm gonna weld. Let's do it. Alright guys, so here's the next order of business. I'm getting some pieces burned right now. Those are the flanges that are going to fit right here in these corners, and then we'll bolt a flange with the piece of 1-inch rod to that, and it'll be on a 45 back to the wall, and then it will get lag screwed into the wall at the top. It'll make more sense. Bridger's over here, he's getting the rod cut right now. So we'll get all these parts cut, we'll start fabbing those up, and we'll show you guys what we got. Okay, so we need to be 37 7/16. So we got our mark there. Like I said, for this to work out, the important thing is that we get our level on here. .45. See how we are on our length. 37 7/16. Okay, so we got these 45'd. So I think we're going to go over and use the dragon wagon to get these fit up. So we'll take them over there and see if we can make this work. Alright guys, so we've got our brackets here. These are going to go in the corners. So we're going to get these tacked into place. Keep holding it. Ready? Mm-hmm. Ready? Mm-hmm. Alright, so we're getting these rod 45 brackets done. So I'm over here at the Fireball Dragon Wagon. I've got the fence blocks set up, and I've got my plates set up against the fence blocks, and they are perfectly square to the table. So I've figured out how far off the table I need to be, 1.25 inches. So I've taken my Fireball shims and I've got some 1.25 inch shims underneath the rod. That puts me center of my plate here. And then to get it center left and right, I've figured out that it's 1 5/16 either direction. So I'm going to go ahead and put a tack on this. The other good thing about this is this gets you, we know that it's perpendicular. Okay, so I know I'm tight against this one. And if I'm tight against this one, and my measurement's good, which it is now. Okay, should be good. I'm going to get a tack on that one, and I'm going to put a tack on the bottom of both sides. Now we have our bracket, and we should be perpendicular. We're going to come over here and try this. Okay, so I do have a little bit of cleanup to do here. I am going to buff this. Goodness, I am going to buff these welds flat so that when I put this flange on it, it sits flat. The other thing I want to do is I want to hold this here, and I'm going to have Bridger come over. I'm going to have Bridger come over with the level, and I'm going to level off the back side of this to make sure that this is close to where it needs to be. Off the front to the wall surface, I need to make sure that that's where it needs to be. So, okay, so that puts us right on the money. That way, when we bolt this on here, we screw our lags in there. All right, so we'll go ahead and weld these out, clean these up, and then we're ready for powder coat. So we'll go ahead and weld these now. All right, that's good. Okay, so I've got my angle brackets in the fireball vise here. So I'm gonna weld half, I'll rotate it, and I'll weld the other half. And I got these pins in my vise here to grip the rod. It's working out quite nicely. All right, guys, that pretty much wraps up all the fabrication for this one. So this is off to powder coat. It'll probably take about a week to get it powder coated. Then we'll get it back. Once we get to that point, we'll be ready to install it, and we'll try to get some video of that. So when we get to that point, we'll catch up with you then. All right, guys, welcome back to our Canopy build. We're just getting everything set up here. I've got a friend of mine here that has a pretty sweet rig, so I'll show you what he's got going here. He's going to help us fly this into place so we can install it. So let's walk back here and I'll show you what we got. So he's just getting the outriggers down right now, and he's got a crane on his truck here. So a 3,500 pound capacity Stellar crane on his truck here, and you put this on yourself and you build all this, didn't you?
Yeah.
It's pretty sweet. Mike owns a fabrication business locally here, does really good work. So it's kind of nice when you get to know good guys like Mike, because you can work together, and he's helping us out today. So we'll see if we can't get this rigged up and flown into place and see how it goes. Okay, so now don't get under it.
Down.
Come grab the foam. Yeah. So that's what it looks like. We actually brought it down, had the whole convoy. Mike showed up, we got it up in place, and the architect forgot this little detail that the roof has a slope right here, and so that bracket hit the soffit. So we ended up having to lower it back down, haul it back to the shop, cut those brackets apart, and then have them repowder coated, and now we're here again today and we finally got it done. So we'll go ahead and see if we can't. So we'll go ahead and see if we can't get some video of that